Today, I want to talk to you about the different stills that I have and how I decide which of them to use when I'm distilling a whiskey. By the way, we're not just distilling any old whiskey today. Today we're distilling the New Zealand Peated, all New Zealand Peated Whiskey, which I'm pretty excited about. How's it going, chasers? I hope you're having a kick-ass week. I'm Jesse, and this is the channel all about chasing the craft of home distillation and making it a legitimate hobby. Like I said in the intro, we are making the New Zealand Peated Whiskey today, which I am damn excited about because I'm all about peat, and having peat from New Zealand, that's cool. If you don't know what I'm talking about, the last main video that came out from Still, it was all about making this wash and making your yeast stretch a little bit further. So if you want to check that one out first, by all means, go ahead. But today we're talking about distilling this product, how I go through the process of deciding what still, what configuration of still, and whether or not to use stripping runs, all of those sort of things. We're going to talk about all of that today. New distillers, warning, there is a whole lot of words, abbreviations, names coming up that might sound really weird to you and you don't know what's going on. I'm going to do my very best to put annotations over here to let you know kind of what's going on, but if I was to explain each one of those, we would be here for about 6 hours. Drop a question in the comments here, and if I can't get to it, the guys that know their stuff around here sure will. We'll look after you, okay? So the first thing you need to think about is what you have in terms of a wash. Now, for me, that is about 75, 80 litres of 9.7% ABV, super peated, crazy ass New Zealand peated wash. The important thing that I'm considering here is the ABV and the volume at this stage. Now, the reason I am talking volume to start with is I could use something like this, right? Now this, I can fit roughly 10 litres into this pot. That is going to take me, yeah, that's going to be like 8 runs of this little bad boy. And all that is going to do is possibly get me to the point where I have to do spirit runs. So maybe another 2 or 3 spirit runs after that. Yeah, we're not going to be using this for obvious reasons. I could use something like this, which is the Clawhammer pot still. 30 litres, not nearly as absurd, but I do have 2 50-litre boilers over there, and that at this stage just seems to make a whole lot more sense. The second thing that I really think you need to consider is what it is that you want the spirit to turn into. Do you want to take as much flavour as you can out of the run and get a really high ABV consistently for, through the run? If the answer to that question is yes, then you're definitely looking at a reflux still. And in my opinion, you're going to really want a packed column rather than a plated column. In my case, that would be the Genio still. Now, do I want to use that in this situation? Hell no! I want as much flavor as I can possibly get from the peat, from the grain, from the yeast, from the acids that have been kicked out by that funky wild yeast and bacteria. I want all of that. So Genio, sorry mate, you are not the tool of choice. Don't worry guys, I will be showing this thing off again soon. People have been asking, I will be using it, trust me. So now we have this cut down to the 50-litre keg pot. Am I going to use plates, or am I going to use this thing in straight pot mode? And I also have to decide what I'm going to do about cutting the volume down, because I can't fit 75 litres into a 50-litre keg. First, let's deal with the straight pot versus column issue. To do this, I'm going to give you a super duper quick crash course in how plates like this work in a still. If this is something you want me to go into more depth, ask in the comments down below and we can look at doing it, okay? The way this works is that the still is going to have a set of chambers sitting on top of each other vertically, like this. They might look like this. This is a sight glass. These are both 4-inch components. The internals are exactly the same. They just look different from the outside. And of course, you can get smaller versions of this too. This goes with the Clawhammer still over here if you want to run that in plate mode. And inside these, you have plates. These bubble caps are essentially little airlocks. The 5 that face up allow vapor to come up through them, but they do not let the liquid go down. The one that faces down does not let the vapors go up through it. It does let liquid drop back down. So what this means for you as a distiller is the vapors come up through the bubble plate or the perf plate. They go on up through the still, they condense, they come back down, and they start to pool on the plate. As the liquid pools, there's still more vapor percolating up through that pool of liquid, interacting with it and carrying on its merry way, while any excess liquid here pours back down to the previous plate. Woo! Okay, that got deep for a second. What it means is that you are essentially forcing extra distillations, right? So the vapor comes up, it almost like redistills itself here again, and then goes up to the next plate and does the same thing over and over again. Obviously, this is going to increase the final ABV of your product. But in my opinion, it also retains a lot more flavor than you would get if you were running through a packed reflux column. Does a plated still like this make a tasty whiskey? Hell yes it does. Does it retain a whole lot of flavor? Yeah, I think for the most part it does. But it makes a lighter, more delicate, more refined whiskey than a straight pot still. So, do you want something that tastes like a blended scotch? Plates. Do you want something that tastes like the lighter, sweeter, more refined sort of American whiskeys or bourbons? Plates. So guys, don't get me wrong, there is a place for all of that. I love those whiskeys too, but that's not what I'm making today. Today I am trying to make a deep, dark, crazy, gritty, dirty, funky, peaty monster of a whiskey, and for that, I don't want this. That means we're running straight pot, baby. We may as well just get some wash into that boiler. We know we're going to use that boiler. We may as well get the wash in there and get it heating up, because it's going to be about 40 minutes before it's ready to run. So while that's heating up, we can have a talk about how we're going to deal with this volume. Like I mentioned before, I've got 75, 80 litres, something like that of wash, and I've only got a 50 litre boiler. Doesn't take a genius to figure out that I'm not going to fit that in one go. So what are my options here? Option number one is to run 2 stripping runs on the big still and then whack it into this guy here and do a spirit run over here. If you're going to strip all of your wash down to low wines and then add it back into the boiler, you're going to want to run at least 2. You may get away with 2, but normally 3 or 4 runs. Condense that down into low wines and pop it back into the still to get enough volume in the still to be able to run it again. Is it really something I want when I want a full-bodied, kind of crazy, peaty whiskey? I'm on the fence about that. Probably not. Here's the caveat to that. Peated whiskeys tend to take a long time to age out because you are putting some crazy ass flavors into the barrel that need time to clean up. So if I had 3 years, 4 years, 10 years, then 100% no, I probably wouldn't want to do this. But do I want to give away a little bit on my end product to save a little bit of time now? That's a trickier question, right? On the flip side of this, I could do 2 straight pot still runs. I split the wash in half, put about 40 litres into the boiler the first time, about 40 litres into the second time, essentially do 2 identical runs, make the cuts on both of those, put them in together, and that's my finished product. To be honest, I'm not sure what to do at this stage. So here's my plan. I am going to load that boiler up with as much as I can fit in it. I'm also going to put one of these sight glasses on the top, not because I want to put a plate in it, because I want to see if I'm about to get a puke. And I am going to run this as super duper slowly as I possibly can from the get-go, and I'm going to pretend that I'm doing a spirit run. Once I get into the hearts, I am going to make a gut call on whether or not I'm going to keep running as a spirit run, collect out, and then do it again with the second run, or if I'm going to say screw it and take all of that spirit that I collect and dump it back into the still for the next run. Once I get into the hearts, I'm actually almost happy with this as it is, but the thing is, I only got a very small amount of what I am really happy with. The rest is nice, there's lots of smoke, there's lots of character, but there's a little bit too much funk, there's a little bit too much kind of dankness. but I want to try and clean this one up a little bit more on the funk side of things while leaving just as much smoke. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to keep just a little bit back of the hearts that I really enjoyed as is. I'm going to crank the still back up to full speed now and run out and combine all of the spirit back into the 30 odd litres that I've got still sitting in the bucket over there. And the spirit has cleaned up a whole lot. I'm still retaining most of the smoke, but I'm getting a much cleaner, fresher, fruitier, brighter characteristic over the top with more almost plum and date sort of dark fruit flavors underneath, which is absolutely awesome. I'm expecting, I don't know what to expect for the tails in this. Once I get down below kind of 60 odd %, I'm going to be searching for tails pretty strictly, and I'll start going back to smaller jars as well. I know this is just one little example of how I choose the sort of still that I want to use for any specific run, but I'm hoping that going through this process has given you an idea of the thought process behind it so you can start making decisions for yourself. If you have questions, feel free to ask them down below. If you know the answers to these questions and you see them and I haven't got there yet, or even if I have and you think I've got it wrong or haven't answered it completely or whatever, please guys jump in and help each other out. I love it when people do that. I need to say a huge thank you to the Patreons. You are the reason that I get to do these experiments. You're the reason that I get to mess around out in the shed. Flies, god damn it. And I would not be able to do this without you guys. Honestly, like I couldn't do it without you. So I very much appreciate it. If you do find value in these videos and you think perhaps you would like to help support Still It as well, please jump on over to Patreon, have a look at the different tiers. Honestly guys, I'm looking for ideas. I'm looking for ideas on how I could perhaps reward the Patreon. So if you have some ideas, let me know about that as well. If you like this video, team, please hit the thumbs up down below, hit the subscribe button, share it around to anyone else that you think might enjoy it. More important than all of that, keep on chasing the craft, and I'll see you next time, guys. See ya.